Okay, so now that we've got that sorted, while I was ordering these ear pads, I saw the headband also, and this one is a little bit frayed over here. Don't know if you can see that. It's not much, but it's only going to get worse over time, so I figured I was in an adventurous mood. Let's go ahead and do it. These are super cheap, but same situation. Well, on this one I didn't find videos that I found convincing. On this one I found no video on how to do it, so I thought I might as well go ahead and record it. There are 2 screws down here, 2 screws down here. I'm assuming these 2 screws down here don't interest me for the task at hand, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove these 2 and we'll see what happens. I might end up editing all of this out. I'm just gonna let the camera roll and we'll see what it gives. All right, these two parts want to come apart straight away. There we go. So that basically popped out by itself. Okay, so straight away. Oh wow, yeah. The new ones even have the little corner that I hadn't noticed, so that they don't get in the way of the screws. Well, this looks pretty simple. Yep. As soon as you release the screws, they just want to come apart. Looks like there's no clips or anything. Alright, so now what? Looks like we are going to have to remove these 2 to be able to pull everything off. I'm going to remove the one without the cable, just hoping it makes my life a bit easier, because it should have less cables coming into here. Alright, here the screws are off, but the pieces are still in place. Alright, this one does appear to have some kind of a clip in there, because even by pulling on it, here it's starting to open a bit at the bottom. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go get my pry tools, because this one does feel like there's a clip in there somewhere. Okay, got my pry tools. Sorry about that. I also adjusted the camera a bit so I don't have to stretch my arms out so far. Hope you can still see what's going on. Obviously it's always complicated with black parts, but there's a small gap starting to appear right there. And it looks like the top part, the flat part, is connected to this, or it's the same part as this rather. So the best bet's probably going to be trying to pull this one out. Now we have the same gap on both sides. So let's see what, there we go. Too much torque and not enough action. It wasn't that bad. Okay, so but now we need to be really careful, because this little cable here is not strong at all. Ooh, this could turn out to be more complicated than I expected, because I'm not seeing how I'm going to slide this thing off there without disconnecting this cable from the earpiece. This could turn out to be more of a pain than I thought, and more of a complete disassemble, which would explain why there was no decent instructions on how to do it. Am I missing something? Here the cable comes straight out. It looks to be a bit of a barrel, but it doesn't look like a connector. Because the logical thing would be for there to be a way to disconnect it, but it doesn't look like it. Maybe on the other side. Alright, so this is where you don't want to mix up the parts. That's not it. Yeah, okay. So this is this side. Okay, I sorted out my parts again. So these are the first parts we removed that cover the end of the head strap, And it turns out they do have tiny little clips in there, but as I said, they popped open as soon as I removed the screws, so But what you do have to be careful about is that the screws that go into the top here are just a tiny bit longer. Don't know if you can see that. Just a tiny bit longer than the ones that I removed from this last plate, from this last pot down here. So you do want to separate your parts. I kept the right parts on the right. Plus they're also marked on the inside. These ones have the marking on the inside, so it says R there. This one also. So that's not too big of a deal. But anyway, I'll just save you a bit of time later on. With its screws, and this is the half that I removed with its screws. And on my left side, keeps things simple, I've got the other half and its screws. And rather than going to do a deep dive on the internet, I'm just gonna let curiosity run free and see what gives on this side. And if it turns out it's the same as the first side, well, then I'll go look at what Mr. Google has to say. Okay. So knowing what we know now, oops, sorry, bumped you. We know that this guy here wants to go that way. Or am I wrong? No, that's right. There we go. Oh, no, it was the inside that wants to come off, sorry. Alright, but the barrel is just the same. So the left piece to the left with its screws, and this barrel is just the same as the other side. So I'm not seeing any easy way to disconnect the earpiece from the headband. That is going to be a problem. And you should not be doing what I'm doing now, letting this piece here hang on the other cable. It's definitely a no-no. Good news and bad news. I finally found a good video on how to go about this. Not on YouTube, but on a product description of looks to be the same product on Amazon. And there's a 11-minute video. I'll try and link it. I'm not sure if it's possible, but I'll do what I can. Where this guy takes this thing completely apart and shows exactly all the steps. So now we know how to do it. That's the good news. The bad news is that there's no connector. So you have to unweld the cable straight from the earpiece. So before I do anything else, I'm going to reconnect, because in the video at least, and I'm pretty sure that makes sense because there's less controls, as I said earlier. Because over here you have the volume control, the mic and all that. Here you just have the two cables that arrive to the speaker, as it were. So we don't want to do anything to the side where the cable arrives, okay? So before anything else happens, I'm going to close this side back up to avoid stress on this cable here, because that angle there is quite sharp. There's no play in the cable, and like that we have less pieces floating around. So this is the left side. So this is the, oh yeah, and turns out there's also little clips on this one. Don't know if you can see that, but well, whatever, they're there. And these fit into the top. No, hang on, wrong part. See, that's why I put those ones together. This is the part I'm looking for, and it has clips on the top also. And those clips slide into this guy right here. I'm not sure if you can see this. Try and do it there, but now I'm letting the other headphone hang, which is not good at all. Try and do it quickly without moving it around too much. Oh, hang on. This is the right part and everything's in the right place, but doesn't seem to want to go in. But as is usually with these little plastic clips and parts, you don't want to overdo the pressure, You just want to do it slowly until you find the right place. And when you do, it tends to like fall in place by itself without much pressure at all. The trick is to find the right angle and the right direction that you need to apply the pressure. In this case, we know that these little clips here go into two little teeth down there. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing it in and a bit down at the same time to help it jump onto the clip. But it looks like this guy's a bit more stubborn, and this other guy's got me stressed out. So at least you won't make my mistake and you won't take this side apart and you'll only have to fight with one. That's already something. So if you recall, when we took it apart, this side, this is the opening we had, just less. So I'm going to try and push it in and like lever it up. See what happens. I wonder if my big head is probably in the way. Sorry about that. Let me try and get a better shot. Okay, I think that's a bit better. I put some clips on here just to help out with this part not moving and stressing out the cable, because it would be typical for it to break right at the end. Okay, looks like I figured it out. Turns out it's easier to do it on the side because it's easier to align the metal with the plastic. So I turned you guys around. Now you're facing opposite as before, but whatever. Just so that you could see the inside, which is the business end of what we're doing right now. So it turns out, as I was saying, that it's quite well built, so the plastic is quite rigid, so you do have to apply quite a bit of force, but not that much. Once you've got the right position in the right place, again, putting it like this, it's a lot easier to align it. It just goes on more or less flat. There we go. There was not even a click that time around, because since I already put it in, well, it lost a bit of its strength. But there you have it. And now we have this little gap there, which is the one we started off with. Other side's not quite there yet, but probably just a click away. There we go. Just popped into place. And now I'll put the screws in just to finish off the job and have less things to lose. For those of you who don't know, if you're putting self-taping screws like this one back into plastic, i.e. there was already a screw in there, well, the screw was already in there, you want to find the same thread as to not cut a new one. So when you put your screw in, go backwards until you feel the screw sit into the thread, and then you should be able to screw it in with minimal force, because you're not cutting a new thread, you're going through the same thread, and that will allow you to take it apart and put it back together any amount of times. So there we go, that was that. I think I'm going to flip the camera back over so that we can start taking this part apart. And as Murphy's Law would have it, obviously we have to take apart the earmuff that we just installed. Alright, so here goes nothing. Nothing much to add. Maybe I can show you this time around how this thing pops off if you do the right movement. No, not then. I ripped the earbud out again. Darn. There we go. There we go. Okay, so now I pulled this thing out. I'll do that later on. Okay, so we need to get underneath there. I have to remove these screws here. Anyway, again, let's try and not mix up the screws. Oh, I've done it. Or lose them. They look like they're the same size as the longer ones from outside, but let's not make our life any more complicated than it already is. Okay. go. Gently does it, because there's two small wires on there that are welded onto the speaker, and you don't want to have it suddenly release and create too much tension on that little cable, or those little cables. Slowly does it. We're halfway there. Clicking and jumping, but this last little bit doesn't feel like cooperating typically. This always looks so easy on other people's videos. I'm sure you must be quite disappointed right now. But so am I. This is not going anywhere. You know what? I think the head is screwed under the label. I think they hit a screw under the label. I love it when they do that. They hit a screw under the label. Thank you, Corsair. Guess we won't be needing that right now. Well, that explains a lot, doesn't it? Just as simple as that. And it does fall apart. There we go. Now we learned something. Anyway. Oof. These cables are scary small. And I'm talking scary small. That's very, very, very thin. Sorry, I'm so shaky. Probably should go and have dinner. But I've started and I want to see what gives. I wanted to take that, because here the double-sided tape decided to rip in half, and half of it stay over here and half of it stay down there. I was trying to get it off in a single piece. I have to stick it back in a single piece. It's not that it's not only the OCD, so I was going to attempt to make the reassembly a bit easier. But looks like that idea is not going to work out. Because this double-sided tape is really squishy. Here we go. Maybe. Okay, here you want to be careful you don't rip the microscopic cables out. Hope you can see this. Let me just get a closer shot. Alright, that's a bit better. So here we go. There we go, got that piece off reasonably okay. I'm gonna try and flatten that out. If not, no biggie. Anyway, here we are. So you can see there's a red cable and a kind of orange cable, copper, I guess, copper color. Conveniently, they've already put a red dot on the side of the red cable, so there's no additional marking to do. That will be enough to know which cable goes where later on. So for now, that's that. Okay then, so as you might have seen, I broke my soldering station out. Let go. Switch this guy on. Takes a couple of seconds to warm up. Looks to be a lot of solder there, so I'll just melt it and pull them out, and that'll be that. Almost there. Don't know if you can see that. The soldering iron is pretty cool. This is not the right tip for the job, but it's good enough. I left it on the default of 300. See if that's enough. Sometimes with industrial welds you need a bit more temperature, but there we are at 300. Let's see if that works. Try not to burn the other cable in the process. Yeah, there we go. Took it a little while, but there it goes. Alright, so that one's free. And there we go. Okay. That's that. Set this one aside for now. And continue. Now we have a small screw in here that needs to come out. Maybe I didn't have to take it out, but it'll be easier to put it back in later on. Okay, so that's good enough. Pull this little wire here out of its channel. Ooh, that's dirty. Okay, looks like they had a they used a bit of super glue there. It looks like you can see the telltale white kind of dusty mark on the cable. Well, that's a sure sign they use, well, not a sure sign, but a pretty good indicator that I put a little drop of super glue in there. Good to know. Alright, let's try that again. I think I missed a step there, but well, you were out of frame. But anyway, just released the wire, pulled it through here, and now we've liberated the bracket from the headpiece, which now allows us to pull this one off and put the new one on. I'm filming, right? Yes, I'm filming. Okay. Let's go. So, the guy in the video just cut through all of this. Once he kind of like freed it up a bit, just cut through the top layer, which is probably not a bad idea. But since this one's not too bad, I might have a use for it later on in life. Who knows? You never know what happens. So I'm gonna try and not destroy this one and remove it in a civilized manner, as long as it doesn't get too hairy, obviously, because we've all got better things to do. Okay, so there's a bit of double-sided tape down here also. There we go. Ah, yes, that makes a big difference. So let's see. Oh yeah, there was double-sided tape here, but it just came off by itself, so I didn't even notice. Anyway, let's go backwards. Ooh. Looks like, although I was in a good shape to start off with, the plastic is pretty tired. And by splitting it this way, I am going to end up ruining it anyway, so this might all be a useless exercise. Yep. Pretty useless exercise. Let's see. Well, it's out. Let's see how bad the damage was. Yeah, pretty bad. Don't think I'm going to be using that again. Hope the new one fits. Phew. Look at that. Oh, okay, this comes apart. So you want to be mindful of that. Try not to move it around too much. This is going to be interesting. Definitely going to be interesting. Woo, that's not cooperating at all. What shall we use? What shall we use? I have a pair of forceps somewhere. I can't seem to. Let's see if these are enough. That should do. There we go. So these are reverse pressure pliers. So you just let go and they bite. Not a tremendous bite, so you don't want to overdo it, but there you go. Remember what I said about using your brain and not your strength? Easier said than done, I know, but generally it pays off. These little corners down here are quite sharp, so you really want to avoid that. But it seems to be fitting pretty comfortably. It's not too tight. Just get the little lip out so it doesn't get up on itself. Alright, I think I'm just gonna stop talking, fast forward this in the video, and slide this on like a sock. Well, there you have it. That was quite tedious, I must say, but to be expected, because the center part is the widest part of the headband. So once you get there, you really have to scoot it up slowly and slowly, and I really feel I just gave this thing the equivalent of 5 years of, maybe not 5 years, but at least a good years of use with all the pushing and pulling and whatnot. And I really hope that they're better quality than the original ones, because I don't feel like doing this again anytime soon. But there we have it. Anyway, so we're back to more or less where we started off. I guess we could close this side up just to make sure this doesn't slide out any further. And then we're back to resoldering. Okay, so this is the left side, and we want the left parts. This is the inside. It appears to go like that. Again, we have these little clips at the bottom. Don't know if you can see them. So you want to like hook them in at the bottom and then close it towards the top, making sure that all the fabric is inside, right? Because otherwise we kind of missed the point. It's not looking so good. And I've got a tiny bit extra over here. I've got like 2 millimeters over here and nothing over there. So I'm gonna push it back a mil. Sorry about for the Americans, but in my humble opinion, you couldn't invent a more complicated system than the fractions and the imperial system, as they say. So yeah, it looks like we're more or less even there. I've got like a millimeter there, a bit more than a millimeter here, maybe just a bit more. Oh no, wrong way, sorry. Yeah, that's good. No, too much. This is quite elastic, so just by massaging it a bit, it moves. But there, that's good enough. That should bite everything. Let's see if that's true. Yep, that looks about right. as does that. Now it's grabbing all the fabric nice and evenly. A bit of a pinch right there. There we go. There we go. Always remember to go backwards until you find the thread. Otherwise you're going to be screwing into a big empty void by the third time you do this. Not sure how much of this you can see, but to be honest, there's not much to see. I'm just screwing it back together. If you saw me unscrew it, just put that one backwards. Same difference. Something's not right here. Something's not right at all right here. This is supposed to be flush with that. So it looks like this cylinder bit wanted to go all the way inside this plastic bit, which could be why it was so difficult to get it closed. Well, that's definitely not right. Here goes again. They always come out so much easier than they go in, don't they? Yeah, that needs to go a step further in. There we go. There we go, now it's sitting flush on that. Okay. I'm gonna leave you there, you've already seen this once. And you're gonna see it again on this side, so. Oh, it's so much easier the second time around. There we are. Alright, so that's in there. Let's get the screws in before it changes its mind. I'm not fitting the I'm not fitting the thread. There it is. There we go. See, now it's closes flush. Alright, one less thing to do. What's the next step? Honestly, alright, yeah, I was going to do it the other way around, but now since this is there, just put this cable into there, and like that we can eliminate the guesswork. There we go. Okay. This hole lines up with the hole in the metal bracket. Oh. Alright. Need to put this guy back on. About to forget that. There we go. There we go. All right. Okay, this cable's coming out. Yeah, I'm starting to understand why they use super glue there. And while I'm here, I might as well block that off. It's probably a good idea. All right. I was getting frustrated with the lower one, and I decided to attach this one since we're done with the headband, and it'll give me the reference point I need for the depth of the pivot point, or the little cylindrical joint. Again, one less thing to fight against is always good. Alright, so the actual objective of this whole operation is complete. All we need to do now is finish putting back together what we had to take apart. Okay. There we go. I thought it was in, but it wasn't. It is now though. Okay. Looking good. Sometimes you can't exactly feel the thread, but you can try doing like a half turn forwards, and depending on the resistance, which should be close to 0, you know if you're there or not. And if not, just go back a bit further and try again. Okay, we're getting close, getting close. So if I'm not mistaken, this goes something like that. And this goes something like that. Yep. Alright. Okay, so now we can't turn this thing around 180 degrees, which was quite practical, but I guess we'll have to live without. Just want to make sure the cable is not pinched, which it is. It's not pinched, but could be better. There we go. That'll do. Okay. Looking good. No screws left over, that's always a good sign. We're getting there, we're getting there. I must admit, I wasn't counting on such a extensive operation, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Never not quite know what you're getting into. Just because we still have it here. And I don't think I'll be forgetting that twice, so no harm in putting it back where it was. And at least I'll have that code if I ever need it. You never know. Alright, now we're back here again. If you didn't see the first video, you want to clip this ring around the other ring, so you want to try and expand this ring as much as you can. So what I do is I hook it underneath one side. In this case, I'm hooking it at the bottom, so I'm going to be doing like that, hooking it in, and then bringing this lip over the top of this lip. Starting to feel some small clicks, but far from what we need. I think I'm starting to get a bit of grip. Yeah, it's starting to hang on a bit, but we still have a big gap here, all the way around up to here, more or less. So the tricky bit is to get one side over without popping the opposite side off, which is what tends to happen. Slowly but surely. Again, I'm pushing it out and down as to get the tabs over the hooks. Obviously the first time around was a lot easier than this time around. That's the way it goes. Still missing a tiny bit down here, I think. No, wait. Still something missing here. There we go. Forgive the cat hairs. Yep. Yep, that's good to go. Now just cross your fingers that it still works. Well, that's that. Hope this was useful for someone. No idea how this is going to turn out in the edit.